Hey guys, welcome back to the third video on how to be successful in your career series. In this particular instance, we're going to be focusing on promotions. So what is the main problem with advancing in your career? Well, if you speak to your peers, friends, colleagues, they'll list quite a few reasons, and I've enumerated a few here for you from my personal experiences. We're going to go through each one quickly. Number one is lack of experience. That's pretty self-explanatory. If you don't have the skill sets or the knowledge required to advance, it's quite difficult to do so. Number two is lack of opportunity, and this can be pretty much, it's a timing. Sometimes there's no opportunities within your group, within your bureau, organization, or elsewhere. So there's little you can do here if opportunities don't exist. Number three is favoritism. Favoritism is the concept where management prefers one person over the other. So in this situation, it doesn't matter how skilled you are or how good you are at the job. Your chances of getting the position when you're competing with somebody else that's being favored by the management, it's fairly low. Number four is systemic bias, and this is an important concept to grasp, and it's something that surfaced in the recent years. And what it means is practically when there's discrimination in terms of at the cultural level, race, gender, and this is applied or basically throughout federal governments, provincial governments, and all corporations. So this is a grand HR issue that hopefully with time it's going to fix towards the better, but it requires a lot of input from everyone. Then we have motivation, and for motivation, once again, if you're not motivated to advance, if you're not motivated to take the extra steps, again, that's going to keep you where you are. So nothing comes without hard work. And last but not least is personal confidence, and that's again tied a bit with motivation. Some people are actually really good, they do the work, but they don't think they're ready for the next step. They don't think they're going to do well in that next job. So for example, if you're at the working level and your next step is management, not everyone is suited for management. Not everybody wants the responsibilities of a manager, so they lack that personal confidence. So let's move on to a few tips on how you can overcome the problems that I've outlined in the previous slide. And four tips here I've listed out. Number one being identify your work objectives and go beyond. So that means in a corporation, you should always be aware of what's required of you and know the tasks inside and out, and go one step further to prove that you don't limit yourself to what you're being asked. You can think above that and go one step further, and that will really impress the management. Number two is show initiative and take on challenging tasks. So this is tied a bit to number one. Again, if you sit in your box to do what you're asked, that's all okay, but you're likely not going to be promoted because someone else in the organization, there's always someone else that is doing more and more than what they're being asked to, and they're going to stand out in front of management. So try to take initiative when you can and sign yourself up for things that other people don't want to do. And you're going to get a lot of visibility doing that. Number three is identify issues with your company's workflow and suggest improvements. This is a really key one that almost nobody does. So what this means is if you're doing your job and you're using a software or just a general process, you're finding lots of issues with it. In your spare time, if you have any, try to come up with a process that solves these problems. If you can do that, then you can present that to your manager saying like, listen, I've put together an Excel spreadsheet with, these, it's kind of like an alternative to the databases you guys have, and it works much easier, saves a lot of time. You can bet that managers will be impressed by it. And number four is liaise with upper management on a regular basis. A few examples of that includes chairing meetings, representing key projects, and giving presentations. So this, again, is with the scope of getting exposure and visibility to the upper management. If your job is, it's very individual, independent in your own cubicle or in your area of work, and that is not represented on a big scale in front of management, it'll be very hard to make yourself visible and get that promotion. So keep that in mind. Now, let's go through each one of these tips and talk a bit about in more detail. So first one is work objectives. And under work objectives, the most important thing to do is to clarify expectations. So identify what are the work objectives for your position and the personal attributes that are emphasized. And what I mean by that is, let's say in your position, you're required to do a risk assessment for a certain machine, and the attributes associated to that is have great analytic capabilities, great research abilities and whatnot. So make sure you know those work objectives and those attributes so that you can work specifically on your ability to analyze situations, your ability to research, and so on. So this is kind of like target development. And at the end or mid-year, and then at the end of the year, through your performance discussions with your supervisor, clarify with him or her what it takes to surpass each one. So every single work objective has a deliverable. Make sure you go through the deliverables that's expected from you to advance at the next level. So if you're level 2, ask your supervisor, what are the deliverables for level 3? Second is setting a plan of action. So you can ideally identify a plan of action and how you can meet your manager's expectation, one objective at a time. So the reason I said that is if you are too optimistic and you set yourself up to improve on way too many things at once, you might find it very hard and overwhelming and you might not succeed. So one objective at a time is the best way to go. And you should put an emphasis on the appropriate personal attributes. So once again, this notion of personal skills come into place. So when you're improving in a work objective, again, keep in mind what skills are associated to that. What is it? Computer? Is it communication? Is it writing? Is it interpersonal, discussions or chairing meetings, etc. So always try to tie the two together. And I put here an example. So for, let's say, one of your work objectives is fostering external relations with industry. The personal attribute for that would be excellent communication skills. So work on these in tandem and just get better and better, and you'll see a big difference. So tip number 2 is taking initiative and signing up for challenging tasks. So under initiative, put a few pointers here. One, it's never enough to do what you're asked. And as I previously mentioned, everybody does what they're asked. If you're not doing that, you're going to get fired. So again, the point is to stand out from the rest and do more than what you're required to do. And one of the ways you can do that is to jump on key volunteer activities that have high exposure. So you'll notice in your workplace, there's always emails that come through saying, yeah, we need somebody to participate in this working group or take on this project, who would like to volunteer for this. If you can pick the ones that have high exposure to management or they're tied in directly to the company's big mission or to big monetary gains, you want to put your name for those. Even if they're challenging, it's going to really pay off in the end. And lastly is help others and show dedication to your work. So it's important to build a positive culture in your organization and foster relationships with your coworkers and other team leads, because you never know, down the road they can put a really good word for you, and yeah, it's really going to help out. In terms of challenging tasks, I mentioned here to prioritize challenging tasks and assume responsibility. And that's again based on what I've mentioned before. You want to take on the things that other people don't want to take on, and that's definitely going to give you exposure. Again, it's difficult to do. You're going to go through some hard time, but they'll always remember as who the person was that completed that, especially if you did it successfully. And show your supervisor you're interested in leading projects. Now, leading a role is not for everyone, but leadership shows a lot of things. It shows, you have confidence in yourself. You're able to prioritize. You're able to put together a plan of action and kind of lead a bunch of people and see what kind of issues they have and propose solutions for them, help them interact with others. There are a lot of skills that are being displayed through leadership. So even if you're not a person that likes to go out of their box, but you are a technical expert or subject matter expert, you should always try to lead something, whether it's like a small working group or a small project. Just use that, get used to using the word leadership and leading when you speak to your manager. Okay, so moving on to tip number 3, that's identifying issues and suggest solutions. So um, this falls into many categories, and the first category is the workflow. So in your spare time, try to identify limitations in your company's workflow. And if you put here a few examples, some things are like ineffective operating procedures, waste of resources, or things that are focused on the wrong activities. And what this means is there are a lot of key areas in an organization that could use a lot of improvement. And if you can identify those key areas, whether they're part of standard operating procedures or they're just different kind of projects that people are associated to, that they're wasting their time, the output is very low, it's very important to see which ones there are, because then you can provide a suggestion on how you can improve that. Number 2, another issue category is software. So a lot of companies use outdated software. There are a lot of procedures in place that are using redundant, there's redundant work, there are redundant processes that could be eliminated. There are a lot of glitches into the system that people are aware of, and they've developed workarounds them instead of actually solving the glitches. And if you can identify all this and provide suggestions for alternate software, alternate databases, things that can save money and time, this is going to be really good for you. And number 3 is an efficient resource management. And this, again, it's something that's common to all companies. And what you could do is you can provide options to reprioritize tasks. So tasks that are the most important or most time consuming, you can basically kind of show who you can associate resources based on the demand and importance of a task. And again, that gives really good visibility and shows that you are very good at prioritization. Number 2 is reallocation of full-time employees to key tasks. And 3 is to conduct a cost analysis. Now, I put the cost analysis here as some businesses are all about how much money is put in, how many resources are put in, and what's the output. In some of your jobs, you might not have to do this, or this is not applicable to you. But if you can do it, and you can put it on paper, and you can create a nice demo and present it to management, they'll be very impressed. Okay, so tip number 4, it's exposure to upper management, which I think is the most important out of all in terms of your ability to promote. So that falls under 3 categories. 1 is key projects. So try to volunteer to participate in projects of high exposure. And as I mentioned before, when you're seeing these emails or who would like to participate in this or work on this, you should put your name down for anything that's tied to management or the company's missions or goals. If there's no opportunity, you need to find a way to create one. And this is you need to be a bit, how should I say it, creative here. And essentially what that means is you need to highlight to your team and your managers reoccurring issues with the group and how you plan on proposing a solution to fix that, and how you can lead the project that is practically that solution. So you basically created a need, you created an opportunity to prove yourself where there wasn't one before. Number 2, we have presentations. So get used to making presentations to your peers, team, or management, and gain your supervisor's trust and become the go-to person for everything. Now, again, this depends on the position that you're in, but getting used to public speaking and just speaking to a crowd in general, it's a very useful skill to have, and it prepares you to talk and formulate ideas under pressure when the expectations are that you can put something together on the spot without collapsing under pressure, right? So if you can make presentations to management and your team regularly, and you can ease into this one by one and get more and more comfortable. It's just going to help you with your regular communication and delivery. And I strongly recommend this to everyone, even if you don't like presentations. I hate doing presentations, yet here we are. I'm on YouTube trying to talk to you guys. So the more you do it, the better you get. And again, it's going to impress the management. And lastly, we have meetings. So volunteer to chair meetings. What this means is chairs, actually, it's not a really big deal, but to management, it looks like a lot, because what you're doing is you're introducing every topic, you are facilitating the discussion, moving into the next one. And this just requires a little bit of prep work ahead of time, but when you're in the actual meeting, just things flow naturally. If you have some, notes prepped, and you have an idea of what the subject is. And two is actively participate in important discussions. So I'm pretty sure all of you have been in a meeting where someone has the manager asks, does anyone have any opinions? And nobody puts their hand up, although everybody has an opinion, because they're too afraid to share it, or they're afraid to say something stupid. If you're a technical expert in a subject matter and you have a good point, never be afraid to share it, because chances are someone else in the room is thinking the same thing. So, and your supervisor might be super impressed on what you're about to say. So always try to at least participate once in every single meeting. Put your hand up, make a comment, ask a question, whatever it is. And again, it's going to help you to break out of your shell and become more comfortable with the material. All right, guys. Well, hopefully these 4 tips will help you promote in whatever job you're currently doing. And if you find this content useful, please leave a like and subscribe. It's going to help me bring out more useful content for you. Ciao.